Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. This guy is on his way to Celtic and Scott Bain is on his way out. Whilst this deal's done and Celtic, I expect Celtic to go through the summer not making a song and dance about transfers until the very last minute. I think that they will do business and they will get players in the door and get them settled before announcing it to the media. I just think that there's going to do things behind closed doors this summer for some reason. I think there's maybe a bit of a power struggle going on at Celtic Park also. Who is really in control of the transfer policy at Celtic? Whilst Brendan Rodgers will give Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay a list of players that he wants, they tend not to move too fast. With the fact that Brendan Rodgers had £20 million worth of players that he took off the pitch, Celtic do have a strategy of bringing in younger players to make them better to sell on. And maybe Brendan Rodgers is making a point saying that sometimes when you bring in these younger players to sell on, they don't live up to expectation. The fact that we sold Kyogo Furuhashi in the Christmas transfer window, the January transfer window, we never replaced him. And maybe the board felt that, this team's good enough. We'll win the league. We're away in front in the league. We're not going to lose the league. So we're not overly concerned about that. And was it the fact that they just expected Celtic to win the cup? I thought this team's good enough, but everyone, you and me included, could see that the performance levels had dropped on a week-to-week basis since we came out the Champions League back in January. The fact that £20 million worth of players were brought off in the cup final because they weren't good enough to be brought on for Luke McCown, Yang and Johnny Kenny, and it shows the depth of the squad isn't there. Well, the depth of the squad's there, but the quality. Brendan Rodgers has spoke about quality over the last couple of seasons, and let's face it, whilst we've brought in those two players, could you say that they've added real quality to the team? Yes, they do have a quality, and there is a player in Arnie Engels, and he will ultimately move on for more money. Adam Ida, there's no chance somebody's paying more than 10 million for him, is there? Let's be realistic. He will be at Celtic for a while, a bit like Scott Bain. Talking about Scott Bain, obviously he's leaving Celtic this summer, and it's unbelievable to think that Scott Bain, now sit down, put your coffee down and have a mouthful before this because you don't want to spit it back out. Scott Bain has won, you ready for this? 16 major honours at Celtic. Yep. Got yourself, Bainey. Got yourself, Bainey. Unbelievable. He came in from Dundee and he's been allowed to leave on a free transfer this summer. Has he been allowed to leave, or did Celtic pay off his contract? He was at Celtic at a time where there was James McCarthy as well. Another one of those elusive myths of players that have came to Celtic. You could say he was at the same time as Mikey Johnson. What a time it's been to be a Celtic fan. Well, we've enjoyed success on and off the pitch. Some players have just come in and just enjoyed the wages. Fantastic for them. Anyway, Bain's contract has been terminated, whether it's been paid off or if he's been allowed to leave. He would have been paid off. There's no chance that he'd been allowed to just walk. He wouldn't walk away from a contract either. So Celtic would have come to an agreement with him. The fact that Kasper Schmeichel's been the number one for the last season in Sinisalo is hot on the heels of Kasper Schmeichel. People say, do we need another keeper? Yes, we need another keeper. You need 3 keepers for the Champions League, and you also need the young keeper that's coming in, Ross Dohan. We need him for the Scottish contingent. Now, Celtic were very clever. They also need him for the fact that he's came through the academy. And going into the Champions League, you need 4 players that have came through the academy in your squad for the Champions League, and funnily enough that falls into anyway. Bain's 33-year-old and he's still plenty of time and plenty of life in him as a goalkeeper, and it's going to be a case of where does Scott Bain go to this summer. We wish him well. He's been an interesting member of the squad over the years. He's a fantastic number 2. Brendan Rodgers even said that, look, he's a great guy to have as a number 2. That's why we brought him in to Celtic. He's fantastic backup. But there comes a time in every player's life, and I've said it quite a few times over the years, is Scott Bain, he's bound to get to an age where he's thinking, do you know what, I've won all these medals, but I've not played. And as a football player, you want to do the same as every other player on the pitch. You want to take part. Scott Bain could play for the next 7 years quite easily. Quite easily. Scott Bain could play till he's 40 and not break sweat. Because let's face it, over the last, since 2018, he's not broken much sweat, has he, on the pitch, on the field of play. Scott Bain has, what has he got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 league winners' medals. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Scottish Cups and 4 League Cups. What a trophy haul. What an absolute trophy haul. He's about to be sitting smoking his cigar going, easy days, man. Easy. He's walking out. Anyway, we move on. We digress. Talking about Brendan Rodgers and the transfer policy at Celtic. Although Brendan Rodgers has obviously a big part to play in the players that come into the club, are they really his first choices? And is the transfer policy really his, or is it the power brokers at Celtic who say, no, this is the way that we're going to go, rather than bringing some experienced players? Now, the fact that this takes us on to the next part of the video nicely. Jeffrey Sloop is in negotiations, well, his agent is, with Celtic to remain at Celtic. Now, he's not Celtic standard as far as I'm concerned, but it does give you a little bit of stability within the team. And he's a multifunctional player. He can play in a few positions. He can play in the midfield, holding midfield play, and not that he should ever. And he can also be a replacement for Kieran Tierney, to give Kieran Tierney some rest time throughout what's going to be another really busy campaign. Obviously, we're going to the qualifier for the Champions League in early August. There's only two friendlies booked in for this summer. Usually it gets to the end of the season and Celtic will tell us where they're going on a summer tour. They haven't done that this year. A lot of fans went to America to see Celtic. They followed Celtic over to America last season, and nobody knows where they're going this year, which is, it's kind of strange for Celtic, is it? But when it comes to the performance levels going into the tail end of the season, we can all admit that they just weren't there. People will say, and people will point out, that we missed Rio Hatate. Well, we better get used to missing Rio Hatate if he's sold in this summer. And the fact that Brendan Rodgers has said, look, we only need another 2 or 3 players. Yeah, but those 2 or 3 players are going to have to cost the best part of £10 million to bring in the type of quality, unless Brendan Rodgers dips into the transfer market to his old mates again. And I see that one of his old mates, Danny, I'm not even going to say it, can we? He's been linked with Celtic, and he played for Liverpool. His West Ham contract's just ended. Danny Ings, is that really the level that we're going to go to? Could he do a job for Brendan Rodgers in the SPFL? And if he does, it tells me that Brendan Rodgers is only going to bring in players that he knows, likes and trusts, that can get him over the line for his last season. Brendan Rodgers will be hurting after this, because he really wanted to win the treble. He wanted to make sure that Celtic won 9 trebles, and not only for his own CV that would went down as being in the legendary status, but he'll be hurting after that, you know. And he knows that the players will be hurting, especially the likes of Callum McGregor. Whilst other players might have been shocked at the reaction of Callum McGregor and seeing how much it means to Celtic to win trophies and win titles, Callum McGregor's came through Celtic when the average player in the team was a lot better and than the average player in the team now. Coming through with Tom Roderick, even near bitten, you know. Bruni in that midfield. You've got to say that Callum McGregor looked up to a lot of important players for Celtic over the years. Now that he's the elder statesman, he's looking down at the quality. And whilst they can come in with big price tags, Arne Engels will admit himself that he came to Celtic to improve as a player. It's not really what we want, is it? I think it's the time where we consolidate what we have and move forward, and especially going into the Champions League. I've said this before, we also had some fantastic results in the Champions League last season. There was also 1 or 2 results that just weren't good enough, and it showed in the last game. of the Champions League that we just didn't have enough to get over the line. You could tell then that the players were starting to run out of pace and run out of... Just something was missing. Something was missing. And it showed the final game of the season at Celtic Park. Players just turned up and thought they were going to win that game against St Mirren. St Mirren had everything to play for. And this set of Celtic players seem to think that they just turn up and win. Players like Nico Kuhn, to name one, they just think that they turn up and win. Anyway, with Celtic going into the transfer market already and getting in at least one player, also in talks with Jeffrey Schlupp, it's going to be an interesting summer to see if we do go down the route of bringing in some more free transfers that maybe of a more experienced type player. I'm not going to say quality, because I don't think that bringing in a free transfer is bringing in real quality that we need at Celtic. I think that Celtic does need to go into the transfer market, and we need to be bringing in players 10 to 15 million that can do it on a European stage and that have a bit of height about them. Because let's face it, when it comes to the fact that we've got so many corner kicks at the weekend for the cup final, and we were terrible. We're always terrible at corner kicks. We seem to rely on the second ball. Brendan Rodgers knows that we don't have the height to try and... when you look at the percentage of corners over the course of the season, compared to goal conversions from corners, it's probably really low, the stats. And Brendan Rodgers had then went to setting up 3 players on the edge of the box to get that second ball that's coming out to then try and hit the ball into the back of the net. But when teams are putting every single player into the box, it makes that harder to happen, because they're not even looking to try and break out quick. They're just trying to get stop the corner from going in as a goal and stop the second ball. Anyway, it is what it is. It's a big summer for Celtic and Brendan Rodgers that I have been reiterating about for a couple of weeks now. It's good to see Ross Dohan coming back. He'll be an interesting addition. It's unfortunate for the 3 keepers, 3 goalkeepers, 3 young goalkeepers that we do have out on loan. But is Ross Dohan the future of our number 2s with Sinisalo? Let's face it. I said before the game I felt sorry for Sinisalo not getting a starting berth in the team. Whilst Kasper Schmeichel is your number 1, he's the one that caused the goal, isn't it? It was his mistake. Kasper Schmeichel's mistake. Would Sinisalo made the same mistake? I'm not too sure. I think Sinisalo's reaction time's a little bit faster than what Kasper Schmeichel is. But that's a talk for another day. The season is over. It's done and dusted. We won the double. It's a hard thing when you're celebrating winning the double, and there's a bit of disappointment at not getting a treble. It's all about standards at Celtic. Anyway, just a quick video this morning. I will be around with a live when my throat can do it after some work today. On that note, thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel. We are on 21,852. Let's see if we can get to 22,000 before the next Celtic game, which is in 42 days. Not that I'm counting. Seriously. 42 days to wait until Celtic play again. It's a shame, because some of the players will be playing international football, but it's good to see that some were not playing international football and they'll get at least the majority of a month of June where they get to have a rest. I think the reality is some of the players are only going to get 2 weeks rest, aren't they? Oh, God, 2 weeks summer holidays, eh? Oh, to be them again. Anyway, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.